June 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is John Min. I'll be your host. Pat Goldsmith from Niagara Gymnastics will be our co-host. Today, we have an exciting episode, and we're actually going to tap into a little bit of a different field. We're going to actually go into the world of trampoline. The world of trampoline is how it relates to artistic gymnastics, but also as well as discussing how trampoline as an individual sport and in the Olympic sport has great potential, how it relates to athletes and some of the ins and outs of it. We're very lucky to have a wonderful panel of 4 experts in that field. We have Joy Umenhofer, Thomas Hamlin, Steve Bookstein, Heather Edwards. And we're going to discuss trampoline, air awareness, and flight. I'm going to have each of them kind of briefly introduce themselves. Once again, please remember the protocols. If you are a spectator, have your mic on mute and your video off. That way we can avoid feedback and background sounds. If you have any questions you wish to address to the panel, please do it in the chat group and type either to myself or Pat Goldsmith. Please try to stay on topic. You know, we don't want to talk about blind change or different types of vaults. We want to kind of stay in the world of trampoline, unless it relates to trampoline, then we're fine. The episode will be videotaped and will be placed on YouTube the following day. In addition to that, next week we have a very special episode. Next week is a holiday, so it'll be on Thursday, July 2nd at 9 p.m. We are going to discuss what we call LEAP, the learning environment of coaches. It's going to be actually a pretty frank episode. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts, the ins and outs, the ups and downs. We're actually going to tell people what is a sucky coach and what's a great coach. And I hate to say it, there might be some of you guys out there that might need a little improvement. That's going to be joined with John Wochuk, who is a high-level optional coach at Elite Gym ENA. And then it's going to have an interesting panel of fellow MAGMA coaches who've worked with me for a very long time. So I know these coaches personally, so I can kind of jibe them, kind of criticize them, and make comments about that. So that's going to be next weekend. Next Thursday, July 2nd at 9 p.m. So let's introduce our panel. First, Joy, do you mind introducing yourself and saying a couple things? Just unmute yourself.
Yes. My name is Joy Umenhofer Stovall, and I have my own business, which is Joy's Gym LLC. I do consulting and staff, educating athletes, educating coaches. I also was the national team, I have been the national team coordinator for trampoline in the past. I was, the other thing that I have been doing recently has been working a lot with the men's program since 2001, and the men's artistic program, and working with the women's program the last 2 years, utilizing trampoline to help gymnastics. And I also am the trampoline developmental coordinator, and I help gyms start trampoline programs. That was a lot.
Thank you so much, Joy. Let's go next to Steve. Could you please unmute yourself and give us a little intro?
Yes, so I was an athlete in trampoline. I competed for the U.S. I'm a 12-time national champion. I competed in the 2012 Olympic Games, and I was an alternate in the 2016 Olympic Games. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I've been coaching since I was 15 years old, but I was a coach and athlete, kind of juggling two growing up. And then in 2016, I retired from the sport competitively and am now coaching full-time at a club in New Jersey. And I'm the current junior national team head coach.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Next, Heather, please introduce yourself. Just unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Heather Edwards. I'm not nearly as experty as Stephen and Joy. I own Motion Sports Academy in New Jersey. I coach trampoline and tumbling, as well as artistic women and artistic men. So I coached all three very differently. I've been in the sport since I was about 3 years old. I started trampoline back in the early 80s when Rand Wilson was coaching in New Jersey. And that's basically me, which also, while I'm unmuted, happy birthday, Stephen, late.
Thank you so much, Heather. And last but not least, Tom, if you can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Tom Hamblin. I am the trampoline tumbling coach at Bellland Sports and Aquatic in Maryland, and I'm also the power tumbling coach at Woodward Camp during the summer. With my experience, I actually started on springboard diving, and my diving coach would introduce me to acrobatic, force acrobatic, which is now known as acrobatic gymnastics today. And that's sort of how I got into platform tumbling, which is acrobatic called it back then. And so when platform tumbling came out of acro, then I got introduced to trampoline tumbling. And I did compete a little bit at trampoline, but most of the trampoline became a training device for me, not really a competitive event for me. But the most competitive event for me was power tumbling and double mini. So, and going to national championship and winning national championship, and as well as being an international coach for acrobatics.
Thanks so much, Tom. As you can see, we have a wonderful STEAM panel, and I've always tried to get a panel that has a diversity. You know, coaches in different stages, different lives, different activities, different parts of the nation, because that's what really makes our community and our sports community so vibrant and so wonderful, is the diversity of it. So I'm going to start off with some direct, tough questions, okay? So I'm going to hit you first, Joy. I've always had a tramp in my gym, but every now and then I get a post, we don't have a tramp. We can't have a tramp. We don't have room for tramp. I'll be honest, I think that's ludicrous. That's like having a gymnastics program and I don't have a bar. I don't have a beam. I think it's a quintessential piece of equipment. How do you feel about that, Joy? And what would you say to those gyms who don't have a tramp? Unmute yourself.
Okay, I deal with that a lot, and I don't think that some of the gyms don't want a trampoline. I think sometimes they have one in their gym, but the artistic community, especially the teams, can't use the trampoline because when they're in there, the rec classes are using them. So many of the things that we can do, because trampoline is so important now, the men's program has always said that since 2001 and adopted it a long time ago and put it in because they know how important it is. We see training camps of the Japanese or the Russians or whoever training, and they're in the background, they're trampolines. They can do a trampoline routine. Alexei Numov could do a whole trampoline routine. He roomed with my athlete after 2000 Olympics. That's how good they were, and that's why their gymnastics is good. So there's lots you can do. You can do a lot of the things on the tumble track, lots of the drills we do for multiple twisting double somersaults or twisting somersaults, you can do on a tumble track. So my main thing is, yes, I'd love for you to have a trampoline. I think it's very important, but if you can't, there are things we can do to help you do the exact same thing, but utilize a tumble track or whatever piece of equipment you have.
Thank you so much. For a counterpoint or a similar point, Steve, do you mind also following up on that? Your opinion?
Yeah, so I think, I agree with Joy. I think it's absolutely necessary. I think that a lot of people are very hesitant to get trampolines because they don't know what to do. I remember having a conversation with a gym owner from the South, and he specifically said, we're not going to get a better trampoline because I don't want anyone to get hurt, right? And that's just lack of education, lack of knowledge how to use the trampoline as a tool. And I think there's a lot of gym owners that have the strong artistic background that don't have any education in trampoline that are very hesitant to get that piece of equipment because they just don't know how to use it, right? And I think reaching out to the TNT community would be a great start. And I think we've kind of we, meaning Joy, has tapped into their community, but I don't feel like they've kind of reached out to us. And if you go to the USA Gymnastics website and you go under the TNT page, you can find mentors. They have a list of people that are willing, that want to reach out and want to help you learn about the trampoline. So I think it's a very important tool. I think it's, if anyone's going to be flipping, I think it's a necessity to learn aerial awareness. And I think that people just need to be a little more educated. That's all.
Oh, that's actually wonderful. Joy, yes.
What I wanted to add to that too, about some of the men's program have really reached out, and I know Stevens worked with some of the athletes in the men's program as well, and future stars and whatnot. But all over the country, I can give them names of people to reach out to in their area as far as people that can help them in trampoline and bring them in and train their staff as well. Because I think what Stephen said too, that's why I go around and help. I do national camps for I've been doing some of the regional camps even for women and with the national coaching staff, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're saying the exact same thing this athlete's doing wrong on the beam, you're telling them on the trampoline. And I said, yeah, everything they do on the trampoline, just by a basic seat to stomach drop, how they flip, if they use their chest too much to go forward, I can tell you, guarantee they're going to flip forward using their upper body to flip. So anything that I see directly relates to what they do on any other piece of equipment. Same with the guys. So, and it is education. They just go, we're afraid because we're not used to spotting on the trampoline. It would be like me going to spotting rings. You know, I haven't done it that much, so I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take that chance. So that's that.
Thank you. Tom, you had your hand up? Yeah.
I actually agree with Dory and Stephen completely. From my experience, when I used to work at Woodward Camp, I get a lot of coaches criticizing, no, we don't want an athlete being on the trampoline because it creates bad habits. But I believe that the bad habits become, going back to Steve, what he said, where it's all about education, knowing how to use the trampoline, know the technical aspect of the trampoline. And that's extremely, extremely important because the trampoline is so soft and bouncy to the point where it's almost like a technique given. And what I mean by that is, like, you get these little kids just jumping on the trampoline and just jumping forward, putting their feet in front of them, and then throwing their shoulders back to, hey, I did a backflip. But even though the technique was wrong, it was given because the trampoline sort of helped them. And I think that sometimes the coaches are scared about being on that trampoline because they're afraid of that it's going to create bad habits, or they're not going to be able to transfer that over to the floor from the trampoline. And so again, it all falls back on the educational aspect of the trampoline. So if the coaches out there are not using it, I believe they need to get on it. It's like the best invention that ever came out.
Absolutely. I actually have 3 trampolines in MAGMA. Heather, did you have something? Unmute yourself, please.
Yes. I mean, one, I can definitely say that spotting rings is very different than spotting trampoline. I learned how to do that this year. But I think, one, Stephen and Joy and Tom are right, that, I mean, it really does give you the foundation of learning all those basic things before you get to actually floor or you're dismounting off of bars. But I think in another sense, it helps with fear. So if you're teaching these kids how to do it on the trampoline, they already know how to flip. So when you're doing that first round up, back handspring, back tuck, they know what to expect. So they're not quite as scared of it. But if you wait to put the kid on the trampoline when they need to learn their double back for the first time, they're going to be terrified. So you have to get them on young to really be able to develop that spatial awareness and that, not the fear for it, to be able to utilize it to the maximum potential.
No, that's a very good point. I do agree with it. A lot of it, it's progression, starting young, and activity of that nature. I find a lot of times if you take a high optional gymnast who has never really done tramp work, they're very reluctant.
Oh, they're terrified.
They are. One of my favorite stories was we were at Parkettes and I was trying to teach falls on tramps. And the girls were just like fighting me on it. They're like, oh, I can't do it. Because, you know, a lot of them have bad techniques. They like to throw back. They like to whip, you know, so they're going to travel, you know, because trampoline tends to magnify falls, you know, but then again, it can really enhance. And then we had one of our upper elite gymnasts come by, and she's a beautiful gymnast. She goes up on the tramp, bounces, does a triple full, sticks, and walks off the tramp. And then the girls are like, wow, you can do some pretty amazing things. And like you said, the stress on the joints, you know, it's more forgiving. You can have longevity in trampoline too. So I've always been amazed at people who think it's a scary event. I've been using trampoline probably 30 years of my coaching experience, and I knock on wood, 0 injuries, 0 incidents. I've never had anyone get hurt on tramp. You know, I can't say that about, you know, I'd say beam or vault or bars or floor. So, you know, I honestly think it's an essential tool for all gymnasts. Now, for those who work also with artistic gymnasts, are you finding that gyms are putting tramp as a rotation, or is they still kind of throwing it as a side thing to do, like when they're not doing as much heavy vault or tumbling? Heather, can you follow up on that since you do coach all?
Well, I mean, I coach all of them, and we actually all practice at the same time. So, like, my gymnasts will rotate through all the events. So, my girls do a little bit of P-bars, and my guys do a little bit of beam. And they all do trampoline. We always work through trampoline. I mean, like, when my guys are on beam, they're doing circles. I mean, they're not, like, doing beam. But I treat it as an event, and that's just my background because, I mean, I did compete in trampoline when I was younger, and I think it is a dangerous event. Like, it's not one you can just say, oh, here's a toy, go play. I've seen nasty injuries on it. I myself fractured my spine on it, so that you want to make sure that they treat it with the respect it deserves and that it is an event. I know when I go to some of my friends' gyms, it's more like, okay, go do like 10 front tucks and be done. So it's not quite used as like as well as it could be.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to go to Steve next. Steve, do you feel that with trampoline spotting, is it something that's difficult to learn and progress, or do you think maybe gyms should look into spotting belts? What is your opinion on that? So, Steve? I don't know if you can hear
Sorry,
me, Steve.
I froze up. Yeah, I froze up for a second. I think spotting on trampoline at first is super intimidating, super scary. Even someone who was brought up in the sport was very hesitant to try. But just to like the sport, you need to learn from the basics, right? And I think that's something that the coaches neglect, right? Learning how to bounce on the trampoline with an athlete is one of the most difficult things. I see coaches trying to get on the trampoline at the same time and end up double bouncing the kid. And what happens next is the coach will just say, okay, I can't do it. And then they're not going to do it. They're going to use the trampoline for a no spotting station. Right. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, right? That's not what you teach your athletes either. You don't say, okay, you didn't get it. Okay, you know what? Then, well, let's just try to specialize in this event. We won't do that event. Right. I think it's something that you learn in progressions. And I think it's something, that you can also apply on floor. I think tumbling and trampoline is spotting very similar. There's not many, skills that you're on the trampoline bouncing at the same time at the developmental level when they're learning front tucks, back drops, anything up to pretty much 4/4 of rotation. I think you might be on the trampoline, but anything past that, you can utilize sliding mats. You can utilize a bump and a catch, and you can also, if you're very nervous to spot, right, then you can invest in a spotting harness over the trampoline as well, which is a phenomenal tool. But I think it's something that just has to be practiced that people are not doing.
Thank you so much. Tom, what about your reflections on spotting, belts, progressions? Unmute yourself.
I have to agree with Steve. He said everything right out of my mouth. Basically, learning to spot on the trampoline, it is very intimidating because you have to sort of bounce with the athlete and you have to get the timing right. And I think most of the biggest mistake that coaches make is they try to jump too hard with the athlete and it causes that double bounce with that and it gets all the timing wrong. So again, just like what Steve said, it takes practice. And I would recommend that coaches and athletes work together on the trampoline, jumping up and down, even by 3 inches, just jumping up and down, trying to get the feel of the bound, bouncing together and working together. So that's definitely a tool that they need to practice on. So yeah, I 100% agree with everything that Steve said. So he just had everything right out of my mouth. Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, of course, Joy, you're not like a huge, powerful body weight lifter, but you're one of the, our finest trampoline coaches in the world. So how do you go about, like, when you need to spot someone who's a little bit larger or maybe the skill's a little more complex? How do you deal with that?
So before I did spot a whole lot when I was lifting weights and competed in powerlifting, but and I could spot a lot of people. But like what I do when I go and teach these courses to coaches who have never spotted I always tell them to start with someone smaller, but then when they have to get someone bigger, if you've done all the drills, and what happens a lot is people want to start using the trampoline too late. Like they should have used the trampoline for teaching initial flipping and twisting drills, like understanding how to use your body. So when you get someone bigger who's never done that before, even teaching a back handspring on the trampoline and spotting them through a back handspring before back tuck is going to be more helpful if they don't have all the basics to back it up. So if that makes sense, that, and how I do everything is through drills. Like Ryan Weston was 8-time national champion, and he never was in a spotting belt, and he never was really spotted on anything. He did drills, but I have other coaches that spot everything. I can tell you I've had hundreds of kids do a Rudy out, and I've never spotted one. But Nuno, on the other hand, he does spot a Rudy out. He always has. He does spots 1 and 3, all that. I haven't. So I think that there's 2 ways to do it, but as a coach, you have to understand what your limitations are and where you're at with that. I won't spot anything by myself anymore. So I just don't do that. If I need to spot, I'll have someone spot with me, or I'll go like this. Stephen, will you spot that? That's what I do. That's what I do. And a lot of gyms, the artistic gyms I've worked with, they've trained people just to spot. So and people who weren't in the gymnastics field, and they're awesome spotters now. But they brought them in as staff. They work with the athletes, and they're spotters. They actually teach them how to do that. So,
yeah, I've always found it fascinating when at the Olympics you have all those like spotters and side people and the mat people, and even cheerleading, and everything. You have the extra spotter there. So I don't know. It depends on whether gyms want to invest in that. Steve.
Yeah, I'd like to jump on this topic as an opportunity to talk about foam pits really quick in the sense of spotting. And I think that a lot of people will put in a foam pit and just say, you know what, try it into the pit, right? And I think which is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. And I feel like by doing that, you're neglecting those progressions. And I feel like anyone that has a trampoline next to the pit, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, that's what's happening, right? They say, all right, try a double front. Oh, you made your double front. Let's try to twist at the end. All right, let's go. And there's so many things. And I think that's the wonderful thing about trampoline too, is that we break every single little thing down by quarters, right? And in my opinion, a double-double is the most dangerous vocabulary there is in the world. What does double-double mean? You're just going to flip 2 times and twist 2 times? Well, in trampoline, that's terrible, right? Well, where are you going to put the twist? Are you going to put an Arabian, right, and a Rudy out? Are you going to put 1.5 in or 1.5 out? A full in, a full out, right? And I feel like, and I've seen it these artistic gyms that I've visited and watched how they're coaching. They say, all right, that's do a full, all right, full and back out. All right, now try to do a full in the second flip, or and that's why when I watch dismount from bars, sometimes I think it's getting better. It scares the bejesus out of me because their heads looking this way and they're twisting at these weird times, and then they're just kind of like bringing it over, and then they land and stick it, and their eyes get this big because I had no clue they were going to stick it, right? And in trampoline, that's never the case, right? They spot through the twist, they're spotting through all this stuff. So I think a pit is a crutch. I don't think using pits are great. If you have them, you can use them. But I think the progressions need to be done on the trampoline first.
That's an excellent point. Joy? Unmute? Yeah.
There we go. Okay, with the pit as well, and what Stephen said, you can definitely tell, and that's one thing, Stephen, that I will tell all the trampoline people, that I tell the gymnasts that I work with, and I go to some gyms every 3 months. And so the athletes I work with, they could compete in trampoline. That's how good they are. Like I wanted them to go to world age group in trampoline in 11, 12 when we had it, because I'm like, I have these secret athletes, but they're gymnasts. But the thing is that if you're doing the drills and you're doing everything correctly, that using the pit is fine. But you can't just go into the pit and breaking down every skill. You either do a half in, Rudy up. So they tell me, I'm going to do a half. I go, well, what's that? And they do that. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a half-half. Half should have been done in the first flip and half in the second flip, because I don't know what was really going on there. And so I think that if we, the trampoline community, when they come to help the artistic community, we really stress, no, we're not doing a double-double. We're doing either a back and full out, we're doing a full and back out, we're doing a full, we're doing a half in Rudy out, but they understand where everything takes place. And I stop everything at the quarter so you could see whether you're coming off the high bar, whether you're coming off the unevens, whether you're coming off the beam, doing whatever you're doing. You can stop at the quarter and see if they're in the proper space. If they're looking at the ceiling and they are halfway around, you know they don't see anything. So that's luck. We want to make our gymnastics as consistent as possible, okay? So we want to make sure that we're doing that. And one thing about doing everything on the quarters, like Steven said, it's like you would teach a circle. You teach a circle by the quarters, right? Same thing. So it really relates. You teach a kip on bars, they have kids hold the bar and pull it right along their legs. That's how we do a pike on trampoline. Pike open. It's exactly the same as a drill you have somebody do for a kip, to learn a kip. So there's so many things that directly relate. And I'll say that you guys that help the gymnastics community as well, if you can relate what you're doing in trampoline directly to something they already understand. Like I tell the guys that I want their back layout, they call it back lay. I say back straight, and I want your body straight and flat, like you're supposed to do a circle. Okay, so I don't want it, you know, with a round shape. I want it flat. So you try to relate it to what they're doing. And I think that if you can do that, then they're going to be better off as gymnasts. They understand concepts. And you want to teach concepts as a coach. You don't want them to learn something just because you said so. You know, well, they said to do that. And I'm like, okay, but you're the one doing it. And you're the one who has to land. I want to know that you know what you're doing. So,
excellent
okay.
point. I mean, a lot of coaches I've spoken to say that lots of times the athletes, when they're having problems with the skill or something, because they're lost. They don't know what they're watching. They don't know what they're seeing. But, you know, trampoline is, you can't afford to be lost. So you definitely, I think that's
Gymnasts can't either, really.
Yeah, I know, but it's amazing to try to. Heather, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to jump in because it goes towards the pit conversation, but also we're talking about progressions a lot right now and what we should be doing. And I think a lot of the times with the artistic community, they don't know what that means in the sense of trampoline. Like when you talk to a lot of the artistic coaches, that it's just we get on the tramp and flip. They don't really understand the on-tramp skills. They don't really get how we use the back drops and the front drops and the seat drops. And I think somehow we have to bring that into the artistic community so that they understand that flipping doesn't just start when you're just doing like, we call them cowboy flips, was what we were taught in gymnastics at one point. Steven, I don't know if you ever did those, where you do like bend over and just do the ugliest flip known to man. Like, you know, we need to actually show them like, okay, so this is actually how you do the tuck jump, and this is how you do the seat drop and how you roll over. When I watch some of the videos from some of the gyms I get sent, it's a little scary sometimes. But I mean, I don't know if any of the people here would ask questions about progressions or not, but I mean, definitely Steven and Joy can totally talk about that.
And personally, I bought the trampoline and tumbling book from USAG. So, I mean, it's not expensive. I mean, everyone gym should really have it. We have some questions from Pat. He's going to address the panel. Oh, I'm sorry. Tom, real quick, go.
Just really quick here. One thing I wanted to add in about when Joy was talking about those quarters and getting that visual. I think that one of the skills that every artistic gymnast should learn is to learn the progression we call the cruise. And for those artistic gymnasts don't know what the cruise is, it is the front drop, and they stand up tall, they go quarter to a front drop. And I believe that the cruise literally teaches everything. Even on bars, like doing bangers on bars, doing stuff, working on Arabian, baffle. I mean, the cruise teaches you a lot of things in artistic gymnastics. And so I think that's the most important skill that every artistic gymnast could learn on the trampoline. So.
Excellent point. I love teaching cruises. All right, Pat, ask us away.
Okay, so building off of the idea of the foam pit kind of being used as a replacement for proper progressions, I would say that one of the, well, two of the most popular skills I see thrown into the foam pit without proper progression would be double fronts and double backs. So if you guys were to recommend what you would consider proper progressions for those skills, how would you teach it without using the foam pit first?
Just raise your hand if you, or unmute yourself.
Okay, what I have them do, but okay, if someone wants to do a double back, another thing that I find, I have to make sure that they already know positions. So I already know the reason why you grab your ankles and don't grab the back of your legs is because you close both ankles. If you grab the back of your legs, you're only going to close one ankle. If you grab at your ankles or your shins and close, you close at your hips and between your knee and your shin and your thigh. Okay, so you can close both angles, grabbing. And so with a tuck jump, it relates exactly the same. When you teach a tuck jump, you do your tuck jump that exact same way, you're grabbing. Then you teach your back tuck the same way. And then you teach a double back the same way. So you would do, if they're ready to do a back tuck, they do a standing back tuck on the trampoline to their back and then a pullover. I do it from a stand because if you can jump into one, that's good, but that still doesn't teach me that you can flip fast enough to get over. So I teach a standing back tuck to your back and then a pullover. And I always like to see that they can, and so everybody knows, if anyone wants to contact me, I have all this stuff on video, and each and every step, like what they were saying about seat drop, stomach drop from the very beginning, but they do a standing back tuck to pull over. And then you know that if they're jumping a little bit higher, they're going to get over in 2 flips as long as they don't open up. And so you want to know that, but there's just, Stephen could probably say even more. There's so many drills you can do to create that awareness. Yeah.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, so she pretty much hit the nail on the meat of all of it. I think the easiest way to go about to get to a double somersault is to count 1 to 8. So they have to learn how to do 1/4. So let's take a front tuck, for example, or if we want to learn double front, they got to learn stomach drop first, 1/4, right? Then we have 2/4. 2/4 is a little bit tricky going forwards. It's usually with from doggy to back, right? And then 3/4, we go from feet to back. 4/4, we go from feet to feet. 5/4. Now here's where you can get a little bit, they can get tricky, because 5/4 technically can be front tuck to stomach, which can be dangerous, right? If the athlete's flipping too fast, they come in on their chest, they can scorpion. An alternative, they learn what's called in gymnastics is a ball out, right? So the athlete does backdrop. They can learn porpoise first, from backdrop to backdrop 4/4, and then backdrop to feet, which is 5/4. Right? Once the athlete gets the feeling of coming from the back, standing up, and then going into the second flip, and then landing it, right? Then we know that we can trust them to come once and then twice over their head. So it's not complete, it's not foolproof, right? So there's no really 6/4. You can do porpoise or ball out to stomach. Which again, stomach landings are a little bit tricky. You know, you have to make sure that the athlete is completely aware, and it's something that you spot a lot. But once the athlete has gotten to 5/4, then the next trick would be to get to 7/4. And the reason why you don't just go double front into the pit is because when they think 8/4, they're going from 5 to 8. They're going to pull hard. And you probably have seen it if you've been with an athlete in the pit. They go for double, they open too late, they end up scorpion or landing on their stomach in the pit and hurting their back, right? So we have to make them understand that it's 7/4 first, right? Double front to your back, or even a little bit to your butt, and then we go to 8/4. So, and you can do the same thing going backwards, but breaking it down from 1/4 all the way to 8. And you can do that with 12/4 for triples as well.
I actually like that analogy because in some ways it's like dance, you know, when we take the 8 beats and stuff and you really try to break down the movements for the dancer. And really, you're right. We need to take those steps because trampolining in the wrong hands can be hazardous. I've actually seen some bad accidents. I was actually at the national camp and they had the tramp into the pit and they were letting the girls just kind of chuck and have fun. And I was lucky. One of the girls was trying to like do a double and she kind of got short. Her head was actually going towards the edge of the tramp into the pit. I jumped in and just pushed her. She did actually clip a little bit, but, you know, luckily got checked out by the trainer, totally fine. But, you know, I've heard other horror stories, so we definitely want to take those progressions. And that's why we need, in my humble opinion, more trampoline experts going into artistic gyms and really, really just showing them. It always amazes me when I meet an athlete, a gymnast, and I go, okay, we're going to do a little tramp, but I always make them do like safety progressions. Can you do a stomach drop? Can you do back drop? Can you do three-quarter? And they'll look at me and go like, what? No, I can only do a lay out of full. What are all these things? It flabbergasts me. Pat, another question?
I saw Heather wanted to get in on this.
Just real fast. I mean, we use all the progressions that do. If you're looking to do like for the double for tumbling and stuff, we always build our tramp up. So we always put more mats on our trampoline so they have to flip onto something. That way they get used to actually setting up. I mean, and really knowing that if they throw straight down, like they're going down. Because that is the one thing about trampoline. If you mess up, it lets you know. I mean, it hurts.
Thank you. Thomas, did you want to touch on this at all?
Yeah. So, you know, everything that Jordan just said, I 100% agree. I do the same thing with my athlete. We break it down all into quarters, like he just said, going from 5 quarters, 7 quarters, and going up to 8. Same thing going forward and backwards. You know, the other thing that I like doing is, like, again, going back to my crews, it's like if you're teaching, I don't know if you have any people doing Shanko folds. And, you know, if you're trying to teach how to do a Shanko fold, in my opinion, is almost like doing a full out. And if you don't understand the cruise, what is a full out to me? So that's why it's so important for me that all my artistic gymnasts are learning cruises. And they're very easy to learn, even if they learn how to do a cruise at level 4, level 5 gymnast. Just by doing a front drop to feed, front drop, quarter turn to feed, front drop, quarter turn, down, quarter turn to belly. And that's where it all starts. That's where I sort of plant the seed to build up to that later on. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I really thought everyone did a great job with that question, and I think that the breakdown of the progressions in the trampoline world is so much more incremental than it is for artistic coaches, especially when they're trying to teach things using the trampoline, which is part of the problem with the pits and the tramps in the first place. So a similar question, and I'm sure the answer is going to be related to quarters. How do you guys teach beginner front and back twisting? Who would like to start with that one? Joy? Steve? Oh, Thomas? Okay.
I'm sorry. I was breaking up. I got some sketchy Wi-Fi over here. Can you say it real quick one more time?
We'll go to Thomas, and then we'll go to Steve. Okay. We're just talking about teaching progressions for front and back twisting on tramp. Tom, go.
Got it.
For front twisting, basically, my kids don't start twisting until after they master a front pike. Because in my opinion, I think going a front pike open half, which is a branding pike, is a little bit easier to learn than a branding tuck. Because I feel like a branding tuck is so easy to cheat because you can twist so early in a tuck, but you can't quite do that in a pike. So when I'm teaching branding pike, I always teach my kids, what's the difference between a pike and a branding pike? And they say, oh, because you add a half twist. And I say, no. What you're doing is you're keeping the front pike the same as the front pike. Even if you're doing a branding pike, it's still a front pike. The reason why I'm saying that is because I don't want them to lose that front pike in mentality, to lose that front pike, because they tend to cheat. So by doing a lot of front pike open, then they start adding a half twist to it. And then once they master that, then they go front pike, half, half. And I like saying half, half because it gets them to organize their brains and their body trying to make that connection. So that's what I normally do to teach front twisting, is to do it from a pike, and then eventually they start to lay it out later on. So that's what I do for front twisting.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go to Steve next.
I think Joy had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Joy.
Joy.
That's
Go ahead.
right.
So
Well, I'll let Stephen, you can talk about back twisting.
Go
I
ahead, Joy.
just want to go with one step before you do any twisting on the trampoline. Something that I always take the gymnasts back to, because they bring me into the gym after they've kind of taught twisting, and so I have to fix it. So I'm the fixer person. So if they even do seat drop, stomach drop, seat drop, go to their stomach right before they land on their stomach, do a half turn to back, and then a full turn to belly. If you can visualize that, if they're straight on the trampoline, then you know that they're flipping before they're twisting, okay? And if you go sit, stomach, back drop, okay, seat to stomach, back to your back, and do a half turn to your belly, which would actually be a cruise, and then do a full turn to back, that corrects them from twisting too early too. So after you've learned how to do the twisting, you sometimes have to go back. And that's another thing about progressions that I found with a lot of the artistic gymnasts. If they lose a skill, they have no place to go back to learn it again. All they know is they can do one. So the other thing with what Tom said about the front pike and what Stephen's going to tell you, they always have a place to go back to if they lose a skill. So they always can go backwards. And you always, there's so many of those little things like I just told you. I just wanted to put that in there because they need to know how to do that first before they even flip with twist, okay?
Hey, Steve, you're next.
yeah, so I don't want to open up a can of worms here, but the front full is a special skill, and it's a skill that is an eye-opener for me when I go to artistic gyms, because that's where you see how many people are twisting in the wrong direction, right? You do the branny, and then the athlete tries to go back in the other direction. And this happens, I would say, probably 75% of the artistic kids. And I ask, well, which way do they twist? And they say, well, put your leg for cartwheel again. And they're telling these kids which way to twist. And this is where the can of worms comes in. As a trampolinist, right, the tumbling is separate from the flipping and twisting. So it's, in my opinion, in my experience, that athletes have a dominant side twisting, and that is mutually exclusive from their round off leg. So, and you'll see this when they try to do front full. So you're like, why are they not learning front full? Why are they not learning front full? Because they're trying to twist back the opposite direction. So one thing is, when you're learning swivel hips, seat drop, half turn, when you're doing the drills that Joy said, seat to belly with a half turn, or when you're learning cruise, it is so imperative for the athlete or the coach to pay attention to which way they are twisting. And I feel like that's very neglected. And then they're trying to teach their kids front fulls and Rudies and back 1.5s, and they're not twisting. And they're like, why are they getting stuck? And it's like, because they're twisting against their nature. And then you have to go back and try to reteach them. And then they're scared because they already know how to do a full backwards, and now they're trying to learn 4.5 and they can't do it, and now you have to try to reteach them. So it's tough. So pay attention to those things. And then going backwards, we can do the same thing. Going off of Tom and Joy said, we need to try to put the twist at the very, very end. We need to exaggerate it in the developmental stage. I know a lot of coaches don't like to do that, right? They try to teach exactly where you're going to turn once it's mastered. And that's not, at least, how I've coached in trampoline, right? We do a back layout. Waiting until you're spotting at the very end, and then turn the heels, right? Then we do the back half jump, half turn. Mind you, this is for back full specifically. There's hundreds of drills to do this before this, with 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, like I said, right? I'm just skipping past those 1, 2, 3s to get to the meat. So we exaggerate the ending, make sure there's a lot of spotting going on. I do back layout, jump, half turn. And another good drill is they do a back layout when they see the trampoline. They clap and land on their feet. This way they can kind of learn the timing of where that half twist has to go. Back half, and then they land the back half jump half turn. And then we can, sometimes depending on how big they are, they can teach through quarter twist as well. But my big thing, my big stink is pay attention to which way they twist. Let the athlete go on the trampoline and do a half turn. Let them play, see which way they're turning dominantly, and stick with it. Don't try to change their direction because it's going to open a can of worms when they're trying to do some more difficult skills later.
Yes, Tom.
Just want to add to that. I do agree with Stephen. There are some times that for basketball, there are some times I like doing the late half. But for me personally, I am really, really big on Arabians. I'm really big on them. And I know that it's difficult to teach it and for gymnasts to learn it correctly the way that they should be doing the Arabian. And so that's where, for the trampoline, is where the airplane comes in. And the airplane at the half twist, the front drop, and that kind of leads up to the Arabian that can lead up to the basketball. And you know, that is another way of doing it. Is it effective? Yeah, but you have to make sure, again, you got to pay attention to the Arabian, because a lot of times the Arabians are not really taught because it's not really over exaggeration to get to that Arabian. But for me, teaching basketball, I am really, really big on Arabian. And there are some times that I do teach late half just in case if all else fails. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else want to touch upon the twisting or the progressions, or? All right, we're good. Okay, we're good. Okay, so I'm going to move on a little bit to the actual field of trampolining. So I'm just curious, since you guys are like the experts, but for those who have a trampoline team, would you just give us a brief introduction on how many hours they train, what their mix is between actual tramp work versus conditioning? Do you also do other things like floor work or tumble track? Just to kind of give an introduction to people who don't have that program or are curious about starting it. Heather, you want to go?
Sure. I've had both, but I've had just this trampoline team, and now I have my combined team. I mean, when we just work with the trampoline team, we do our, we usually have like a 20-minute warm up. We always do 30 to 40 minutes of strength, especially for the trampoline and tumbling program. It's a very hard sport on your spine. So it's so essential to have your core training done. So we do spend a lot of time with that. We do a lot of floor work because it translates really nicely over to the trampoline, and trampoline translates beautifully over to the floor. But it also depends on the level. My lower levels, we mix it up a lot more. We throw in with them. They do trampoline, we do tumbling, we do strength, and then they actually do bars just to get the upper body going. And, they're young little bodies, so to have them on the trampoline for like long periods of time, you want to break it up a little bit. When we're mixed, it's a half hour to 45-minute rotation. And then we rotate through the athletes.
Real quickly, what preference do you have for the types of beds you use for your trampoline athletes, and of course for your class athletes and your elite athletes?
I have 3 trampolines. My team kids use, we have a Euro Tramp and we have a Chinese bed. I got my Chinese bed from Steven, so he can tell you the brand of that one. And then I have a regular black bed. My classes, my older kids, my 10 and overs will use all the trampolines for classes. My preschool kids will only use the black trampoline. But you have to be careful with your classes on the Euro beds. It's a little scary sometimes. And I know I have a lot of parkour kids, and they're scary. Great flippers, but a little scary. But we also do rod and floor too, so it's like a bunch of stuff mixed up.
Thank you. All right, Steven, same question. If you can extrapolate on that, introduce it.
Yeah, so I mean, to work backwards. So as far as equipment goes, the best bang for your buck is going to be the rebound string bed and springs and non-folding frame. I think you can get the frame, springs, and bed right now for around 7,000 US dollars. And that's going to last you upwards of 30 years, right? So depending on how you take care of it. The web beds are fantastic for competition. That's what we're competing on. So at our facility, we have 7 trampolines. We have 3 string beds that we use for team, but for classes as well. And then we have 4 web beds, which are, we have 1 Euro and 3 Gaofei, which is the Chinese company. And we use those predominantly for the team. We have a team coming in at all hours of the day, so those are always being used. Sometimes, in the rare occasion that the team is not using all 4, the classes can use them, but we try not to because they go very fast. As a competitive program, we have to replace those web beds every single year, and those are anywhere between $2,500 and $4,000. So they're very expensive. So I would not recommend anyone get those web beds unless you have an elite or anyone above the JO level in your program competitively. So the string beds are the way to go. The black beds, I feel like they're great, I guess, if you have an extra trampoline for drills and progressions, up to maybe 3 or 4 quarters, but they're not going to get much out of it past that. And if you're nervous for having a string bed, they also you can put sting mats across the trampoline. You can get 4-inch mats, put them across the trampoline, and there you go. Now you have a black bed trampoline for preschoolers to jump on as well. As far as coaching hours go, I mean, and on the equipment, that's a tough question, right? We go from level 1 all the way to elite. I predominantly coach the elites, but I'll give you on either end of the spectrum. The elites that we have specialized in trampoline, once they get to the elite level, they get to decide if they want to continue tumbling and doing double mini as well. Since those are not Olympic sports or Olympic disciplines, we don't necessarily say they have to, but if they would like to, we encourage it. And so the elites will do about 30 minutes of warm up, 30 minutes of strength and various exercises, prehab, right, and rehab, and they'll do about 2 hours on the equipment. So they're spending a lot of time on the equipment. As far as the younger levels, like the level 3s and 4s, they're spending maybe 30 minutes on the trampoline, right? They're doing a lot of tumbling, a lot of strength, and they're doing maybe 20 to 30 minutes on trampoline, 15 minutes on double mini, right? So for trampolinists, right, we don't necessarily start on the trampoline and building there. I feel like most gyms in the country build on the strength of tumbling and even artistic gymnastics, right? So we have a set of bars in our gym. We do a lot of bars at the lower level as well. They will never know how to compete bars in their entire life, right? But they do it for awareness and body control.
Real quick, are your tramps in ground or above ground?
That's a great question. So we have wooden decking built around the trampolines, so they feel in ground, but they're above ground. So you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to dig into the ground, which is a great opportunity. Even if it's just 3-foot decking on either side with carbon bonded foam, that gives the opportunity for a few things. Number one, time. Right? All the kids are getting on and off. They can get on and off faster. Number 2, safety for that coaches that are afraid that they're going to fall off. Number 3, coach or spotting. Right? So the coaches there are available to step into the trampoline whenever they need to. They don't have to climb onto the trampoline or climb off. Right? And if you've ever stood on the trampoline frame, like you're on a tightrope, right? Everyone's been there, right? Come on, hurry, do your jumps and start your flip so I can spot you because I'm about to fall off here. Right? So we don't have that. We don't have that issue. Yeah, so we have that wooden decking.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So thank you for sharing that. Real quickly though, what do you think should be the minimum height requirement for like class, low levels, and the minimum height requirement to the ceiling, that is, for your elite athletes? Yeah, Steve, if you can follow up on that.
Yep. So, I mean, I think the bare minimum for like a class that you're going to need is 12 feet, right? If you're going to be teaching seat drop to belly, seat swivel hips, something like that. If you're going to be teaching double somersaults. Even if it's not a competitive program, I would say you would need at least 16 feet of clearance, not 16 feet to the ceilings, and then 14 or 13 feet right from the I-beams. And then for a competitive program where you're going to be making elite athletes, specifically senior elite athletes or senior elite men, we need at least a clearance of 32 feet.
Wow, much higher than a ring tower. So you definitely have to have good ceilings. So one of the things I love using Tramp is utilizing it for bar techniques. I mean, when you think about the unique applications of bar, especially releases, Trampoline seems like a wonderful tool for that, especially since you don't have to hit, with your feet first. You go belly or back. Joy, how much have you done with the bar trampoline work, and how do you find it translates?
Well, I translate everything on Trampoline to whatever they're doing. So if I see any skill, I'm able to figure out something on Trampoline that's going to help them do that. So lots of Cody stuff for release moves on bars for the guys. The girls are starting to do that. Gingers, we talk about the crews. We talk about front Codys for Tkachevs. There's lots of different things that you can do for bars. And then another thing about skills, like if they say double-double, I've learned a double-double, they should be able to do that anywhere. If they learned it correctly, and like I said, if we could stop it, like Tom was talking about the crews, if they're coming off the high bar, if they're vaulting, doing the full twisting disc vault, or 1.5 or triple twist, whatever, or they're on the floor or off the beam, you should be able to stop that skill and it should be exactly the same. Okay, so whatever release move they're doing on bars, it's the same. Or if they're doing a dismount, whatever they're doing, you should be able to do quarter by quarter and stop the skill and make sure they know where they're at. So there's lots of drills that you could do on Trampoline for those release moves and for that. And I do actually in some gyms see the athletes doing on the tumble track, putting the bar across the tumble track and doing some things on the bar. So they are used to that kind of work. They're just not used to work that separates the things like ball outs for gymnastics. Anything coming off your back and flipping relates directly to like back 1.5, punch front full, or punch front layout. Okay, so because you're having to leave all your chest and everything backwards and using your body to flip first to get upside down. So that's the same as if you were coming through on a back 1.5 or something like that. So it directly relates. I think more is just the understanding of how it relates, because I tell everybody you want to use a trampoline to help your gymnastics, not to hurt it. And a lot of people are using the trampoline incorrectly. So the mistakes that the coach does not want them to make, they're making them worse on the trampoline. So you want them to use, and I tell the kids this when I go work with them, I say, we have a certain amount of time. What we do here is to help your gymnastics, not for me to secretly make you a really good trampolinist.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker on some of the final questions. Tom, what is your humble opinion on gymnasts having trampolines at home and tramp parks in general?
One thing I want to add to that, I don't know if people know that Steven and they have a YouTube channel called Trampoline Insight, and they just briefly went very, very well over what they talk about tramp park and backyard trampoline. But in my opinion, about backyard trampoline, I mean, it's great to keep the kid active, but at the same time, I believe honestly that the gymnastics and the flipping should stay in this gym so that they are getting the supervision from a professional coach that's going to lead them in the right direction. And I just believe that sometimes when kids have their own backyard trampoline, that they can start throwing whatever they want to throw and start creating bad habits. But unfortunately, what can we do to stop it? We can't. And so as far as tramp park is concerned, it is not regulated very well. The matting is not regulated well. The supervision is not regulated well. I've been there once just to see it, and it's just mind blowing because I'm afraid to jump in there because you don't know if some crazy little 5 and 6 year old is going to run by the trampoline and just smack them. And so I've been seeing a lot of the crazy injuries I've been seeing in Tramp Park, and I really discourage them. And I just believe that Tramp Parks is going to sort of somewhat make us look bad in the competitive trampoline world. And it's almost like diving, because the problem is that if the kid dives in a pool and hurt his head, it could dive in an accident. And that diving accident gets reported to the insurance, and that's going to make springboard diving look bad because it counts like a diving injury. And so it's going to take away those springboards away from the public pools. And I feel like somehow it's going to happen again if the injury rate is going to keep happening in the trampoline part, because it's going to relate a trampoline accident and how that is going to affect us in the future. And I believe a long time ago, maybe Joy can maybe correct me on this if my history serves me right, I believe that they did have trampoline park back in the 50s or so, and for somehow when people were getting hurt, it got careless and it started
1984.
taking trampolines away from the gym, and the gym were not allowed to have trampoline. High school were not allowed to have trampolines anymore. It's just because of all of that. So if anybody can press me on that, on the history of that. So yeah, that's what I'm afraid
I
of.
could fill you on the history on that there, Tom. Nissan actually provided trampolines for parks. And there were Nissan trampolines in the parks and in the high schools. And so many people were breaking in to use the trampolines, and so many people getting injured at the parks, they actually banned trampolines for a period of time. So that happened early. It was like late 70s, early 80s. Now we just have these crazy parks that are just ridiculously scary.
Wouldn't it be cool if, like, to purchase a trampoline for your home, you have to take a class? You know, wouldn't it be nice that Tramp Parks would reach out to the neighboring trampoline gyms and bring instructions in to teach people and have classes? I mean, that would be the smart, ideal world. We are now actually at our 1 hour mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each of the panelists. I would love to hear your final words on what you think some of the benefits, the true benefits of having a trampoline program or a trampoline in your gym, some of the things that you would recommend doing for it, and how you feel the direction of the sport in itself is going. Let's start with Steve.
So I think these my colleagues and friends here are going to give so many reasons. So I'd like to just share a little story for some reasons that I've experienced personally. So after the 2012 Olympic Games, we went on the Kellogg's Tour of Gymnastics Champions with the men's artistic team, women's artistic team, rhythmic, so acro pair, and trampoline. And while we were in rehearsals, I said, hey guys, can you teach me some gymnastics, right? And so in, I think it was 5 days, I had learned, and mind you, the most tumbling I did when I was younger was maybe a round off, back handspring, full on an artistic floor. So I did round off, back handspring, double full, triple full, double back tuck, double back pike, Arabian double front. I learned kip on P-bars, handstand, pirouette on P-bars, and I learned giant and double tuck fly away on high bar, having no experience. And everyone was kind of like, what the hell's wrong with you? And and that's just kind of a that shows how much trampoline can do for a gymnast, right? I never did gymnastics, so I just having done trampoline, was able to do that. Can you imagine if someone that has done gymnastics utilizes a trampoline? They can do way more than that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Heather, final comments, words, and advice. Let's unmute yourself.
Well, so this is Monroe, by the way. I have my living scarf right now. I honestly think trampoline is an amazing sport, and it's so important to have in your gym. Like Steven said, I've had several trampolinists that have switched over to artistic gymnastics, and it's so easy for them to pick up because they do have the basic body. They have such body awareness and spatial awareness that they're not afraid of the flipping and the twisting. The beam is a little questionable when we start that one, but for the most part, it's easy for them to transfer over, where gymnasts have a very hard time transferring over to trampoline. I think it's a great part of my gym. I mean, it's an integral part of my gym, and I think everyone should have one. Not at home though, just in your gym.
Thank you, Heather. Tom.
Well, my final intake on this is right now, because all the gyms are trying to open up and everything else, and I know maybe some gyms may not have classes now, but you know, it might be a good advantage for a lot of gymnastic coaches to say, hey, that trampoline open, there's no rec classes anymore. Go ahead and take advantage of it. So basically, I believe that like men's gymnastics, they should have like 7 events. That trampoline should be in there. Even with women's gymnastics, 5 events. Then you get that trampoline in there. So if you're not on that trampoline, believe me, trust me, you are missing a lot out of that. So that's just my thing. So as far as artistic coaches are concerned, don't be afraid of trampoline, learn about it. Joy and Steven are just as expert as I am on this. Don't be afraid of it. As far as the type of trampoline, even if you have a black poly bed, that's a great start. Use it. And so and another thing about trampoline tumbling, it's so flexible that even if the gym want to start a program, don't worry about if you don't have a raw floor or a double mini or a trampoline. If you have a trampoline, start it right there and just build up. I remember a long time ago, back in the 90s when I first started, we didn't have a double mini. And what we did, and I would not recommend anybody to do this, but we actually put 2 single mini tramps and put it one here and put a block in the middle, and we just jump on, jump off, and made our own double mini. That's how it got started, believe it or not. But anyway, so you know, if you got the trampoline, get on it, use it. It will be it's the best thing that's ever been invented.
And it's fun. I mean, I still enjoy doing stuff on Tramp. All right, last but not least, Joy, please take us home.
Oh, you went away. Okay, well, I agree with everybody, what they've said, and pretty much utilizing the trampoline, it is proven, and I can tell you that it has been very helpful since I have been working with the gymnasts. They've really embraced it. And as far as the trampoline, I've been in trampoline my whole life. I competed at world championships in trampoline. I was in trampoline when the USA dominated trampoline before you said it got taken out of everything. So I have a great passion for it. We have lots of education out there. Please, anybody get a hold of me that needs any information. And if I can't get the information to you, I can give you information of someone who can get it to you where you can mentor. But definitely, trampoline rocks. We love it.
Real quick, Joy, I'm just curious. Are there any new technologies or anything new that they're going to invent or plan for in future trampolines? Just curious.
Well, they continually are changing the trampoline. They've been doing that ever since, George Nissen made the trampoline originally. They made it higher. They changed the beds. They're constantly changing, making the springs different. I'm with Steven. I have in my backyard, don't get a backyard trampoline. Joy has one. I have a string bed and I have a rebound springs, and yeah, I have great pads on my trampoline. Yeah, I have a really good trampoline. But anyways, but that's the one I would go through. But I think they're always changing equipment, just like gymnastics equipment. They're always trying to make something better. You can jump higher, do more skills, have more fun,
Well, that sounds wonderful, Joy. So thank you. So once again, to all our audience and guests, these coaches are all accessible. Please reach out to them if you want to get information or, check on the website.
Please do.
Yes, for trampoline. They're mentors too, and they are definitely experts in their field. Whenever they're around town or in a clinic or something, I'm always there. I hope to bring some of you guys into my gym one day. It would be pretty awesome. So once again, thank you for joining us on Coaches on Couches, episode 11. Trampoline, Air Awareness, and Flight on June 26th at 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We had a wonderful panel. We were joined by Joy Umenhofer-Stoffel, Thomas Hamblin, Steve Gluckstein, Heather Edwards, and of course, my name is John Min. I'm your host, the USECA Video Chairman, and my co-host, Pat Goldsmith. So on behalf of all the guests and myself, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend. If we don't see you, have a great 4th of July. This will be posted on YouTube. And then join us July 2nd, Thursday at 9 p.m. for a very special holiday episode where we're going to talk about the coaching progression and how coaches are learning to become better coaches and how some coaches are forgetting how to be good coaches and some coaches are going the wrong way. So we definitely want to nip that in the bud. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night and goodbye. So once again, my name is John Min. I'm the USECA Video Chairman and your host for Coaches on Couches, Episode 11, Trampoline Air Awareness and Flight. I wish to once again thank our esteemed panelists, Joy Umenhofer-Stovall, Thomas Hamblin, Steve Gluckstein, and Heather Edwards. On behalf of myself and my co-host, Pat Goldsmith, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Once again, please join us for our next episode on Thursday, July 2nd at 9 p.m. It's a special time because, of course, the 4th of July weekend is a holiday. We will be discussing coaching etiquette, education, learning, progressions, all the fun stuff of the do's and don'ts of coaching. We'll be joined by veteran coach John Wojcik, who's been involved in the sport for more than 5 decades and is an elite coach at ENA. And then you'll be joined by a wonderful panel of coaches that are actually MAGMA coaches. Yes, my own staff, so I can kind of talk to you about how they've learned, how we've kind of helped each other and progressed through the sport. So once again, that will be July 2nd, Thursday at 9 p.m. Thank you again for coming on this wonderful episode. Please seek out all these wonderful people. Don't be afraid to have a trampoline program in your gym or trampolines in your gym or add it to your rotation. Take it from me. It is a wonderful asset. I've loved doing trampoline for my artistic gymnast, and I think it's a lot of fun too. So thank you. Have a good evening. Good night.